Welcome to Farming Fridays Week 2, Dissecting Your Farming Prospects. In Farming Fridays Week 2, we're going to teach you about predictive data and data analytics and how you can know what's happening inside of your farm area. Does your real estate career have a foundation? Do you know on January 1st every year that you can count on your first $10, $20, $30,000 coming from one source of business? Do you have a plan, or are you just kind of winging it? Well, within Farming Fridays, we're going to teach you how to have a plan so that you know where that first amount of income is going to come from. My name is Carrie Fitzpatrick, and I am one of the lucky founders of the program being brought to you here today. I have a bachelor's degree in education, a master's degree in administration, and 30 years in residential real estate experience. The fun part about what I get to do is I get to couple my two careers, my education career, my teaching career, and my real estate career. I've either done it myself, managed someone who was doing it, or as I continue to do, dig into all the things, the latest and greatest technologies that are out there in order to sell real estate in today's day and age. Farming Fridays takes place over 6 weeks. We are going to walk through each and every part of your farm area experience. In week 1, we talked about selecting your farm based off good business math. The math is the most important part when choosing your farm area. In week 2, today, we're going to talk about how you're going to create a true pride of ownership so that you know everything about your farm area. Then next week, we're going to talk about how you're going to create a social network of families so that you can become the household name and you can have different events and things that you can do. Then in week 4, we're going to talk about all the old things that are still good to go, and we're going to talk about all the new things that you can do based on today's technology. We're going to have you to create farming materials that you can use and manage your distribution team in week 5. And then in week 6, we're going to talk about how you can duplicate the process. So without further ado, I want to do a slight recap of last week with the 3 simple rules and the things that you should do to guarantee your success when choosing a geographic farm. The first thing that you should do is never enter a geographic farm area where one listing agent closes more than 25% of the listings in the geographic farm. That was part of your WorkBurst homework assignment, was to find out who that was. And if you need more help with that, I'm going to go over that in a second. Rule 2 was never project more than 10% capture of the listing side commission during the first year of your farm. Now, year 2, year 3, year 4, you're going to go up in that capture rate, right? You're going to be more of a household name. They're going to know who you are. You're going to show up everywhere. You're going to show up in their Facebook feed. You're going to show up in your door hangers. You're going to maybe choose to do postcards. You're going to have done community surveys. So you're going to show up more and more in year 2, 3, and 4. But in year 1, we just want to focus on 10% of that capture. And we're going to write our business plan around that figure. The reason being is, you're going to get, they're going to sell one that's going to be part of your 10% capture. And then maybe you're going to be the representative of the buy side of that. Or maybe you refer out the buy side of it for 25% referral fee. So there's going to be more. But what we want to focus on for our numbers so that we don't overcommit you in your budgeting is 10% of that capture rate. And then Rule 3, that brings me to my Rule 3, which is never spend more than 10% of your projected gross revenue on your farming activities. Let me just explain that just a smidge more, how these rules work. Let's look at a sample farm area called Hawks Landing in Broward County, Florida. So we know based on our research in the MLS, so where you're going to get all of this information is from your MLS. You're going to go in and you're going to do a search and you're going to look for the subdivision of Hawks Landing. Now, If I was in Broward County, knowing the Broward County tax rolls, I would use the tax folio number, and I would use the first digits of that tax folio number because it's a 12-digit number, and as you back out numbers at the end, it brings you down to a larger and larger area. So a home would have a 12-digit number, 484123025678 9. When I backed out 9, it would take me to the street. When I backed out 8, it would take me to the little section. When I backed out another number, it takes me to a little bit of a larger area. So I know in Broward County that Hawks Landing, that tax folio number of 48412302 is for the entire subdivision of that, which has 1,150 homes. If I did that search and I returned the search, it would show me that it had 1,150 homes. I want to know what the public elementary school is there. I want to know what the public middle school is there. And I want to know what the public high school is there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to also search with that folio number the number of closings that happened in one given year. So as an example, in 2020, if that's the year that I was in, I could go and or if that was the previous 24 months, I could go in and say, okay, there were 29 closings that happened in year 2020. Now I'm going to give you another example. I'm going to go in 2021. How many closings happened in 2021? Now say we're mid-year in 2022. So we're half the year. Say we're in June or the end of June, beginning of July. I would see that in 2022, 17 homes have closed midway through 2022. So now I'm going to take that and I'm going to have the gross volume for all of those. So I have 2020. What was my gross volume in 2020? 10,440,000. 2021. How many closings? 32. What was the gross volume? 12 million flat. Now midway through 2022, remember, I'm in June of 2022. So midway through midway through 2022, I see that it's 6.4 million. Now I want to subtotal that. So I want to add up all of those numbers. So I'm going to take the 10,444,000 plus the 12 million plus the 6.4 million, and I'm going to subtotal that, which equals $28,900,000. So that's 2.5 years worth of the last 2.5 years worth of closings in Hawks Landing, that subdivision, equaled $28,900,000. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm 2.5 years, that's the math that I'm doing, I'm going to divide that subtotal by 2.5. If I was in September of 2022, I would divide it by 2.75. But for this example, I'm dividing it by 2.5%, which equals an average annual volume of $11,560,000. So with that $11,560,000, we know that the average commission is 6%. So we're going to do the listing side commission on that. So we're going to multiply that by 3%, which is going to give us the gross listing commission that's up for grabs inside of that subdivision of $346,800. That's how much all of the realtors inside of Hawks Landing have the ability to make this coming year. Now, we say to you, when you're first starting a farm, you're never going to project that you're going to capture more than 10% of that area. We don't want you to base your numbers on 20% or 30%. No, you're probably going to get, the buy side, listing side, or the listing side, and then the buy side, maybe a referral fee, but let's just base it on 10%. So the 10% is $34,680. So we can safely assume that if you put in all of the work that we teach you over the 6-week course, that your projected income for Hawks Landing would be $34,680. Now it's time for you to pick your budget. What's your annual operating budget going to be? You take that same $34,680 and you multiply that by 10%. And that's going to give you an annual operating budget of $3,468. $3,468, if you divide that by 12, you're about a little less than $300 a month inside of your farm area. Remember, everything that we teach you inside of our program is spend a dime, make a dollar. Spend a dime, make a dollar. We don't want you to go out there and overspend. We want to make you be the most productive real estate agent by spending while still spending the least amount of money. But these numbers only make sense. The only way that these numbers make sense is if that green number at the bottom of that screen where it says 7%, the top listing agent as a percentage, only if that number is under 25%. Now, in week 1, I taught you at great length how to do that. So if you don't know how to find out who the top listing agent is, please go back and view week 1 and we'll walk you through each way to do that. But don't do these numbers. Don't even bother starting this part unless that number in the green is under 25%. Which brings me to what I'm going to have you do. I want you to build a binder. I want you to build a binder for each subdivision that you choose to tackle as your own, as your geographic farm. These binders should become your go-to piece of equipment. They should be the thing that you have with you at all times. I know there's like all this stuff about like digital versus paper versus, save a tree versus I can do everything in my phone. I've always got my phone with me. I might leave my binder at home. I'm telling you that for me, I tend to like to write things down. I tend to like to have them at my desk and be able to pull them down and take notes when I'm doing my prospecting. If you're time blocking for your farming activities, a binder can become a really important piece of equipment. If you're going to do it fly by the seat of your pants, I'm going to do it when I'm in the drive-thru at Starbucks. I'm going to do it when I'm in the drive-thru at McDonald's. I'm going to do it when I'm waiting in line at my local store so that I can check out. I'm going to do it in line while I'm waiting at the grocery store where I'm going to do these prospecting activities. First of all, I recommend that at all. And second of all right, don't listen and do it your own way. But I like a binder. Just saying. So what I want inside of your binder is I want page 1. I want all of the research that you did in your first works burst. I want the number of closings that happened in the current year. I want the number of closings that happened the year before. I want the last 24 months of closings. That's what I want. I want to know what the gross volume was. I want to know what the gross volume was for each year. I want to know all the things that we just talked about, and I want it all filled in and inside of your binder. And then I want you to have the other piece of homework that I assigned to you last week. The reason that this is so important is that you want to know where the park is. You want to know, say you get your first listing in your farm area. Now you're hosting an open house. So you're in the open house and you've got a couple walking through and they love the house. And the wife turns to the husband and says, "Honey, I really love this house, but I don't know, where's the closest temple?" And you overhear the conversation and say, "Oh, the closest temple is Beth Or. It's 3.2 miles away. It might take you about 7 minutes to get there." Or another example, your same open house, another couple comes through. Now this open house happens to have a mother-in-law's quarters. It happens to have one of those, what they're calling now, granny pads. It has it. And the parents can live there and it doesn't have too many stairs and it's the perfect home for somebody who's taking in their aged parents, right? But the wife turns to the husband and says, "Wow, Mom and Dad could really, enjoy this home with us. But with all their health concerns, I don't know where the hospital is. Where's the closest hospital?" And then you can say, "Oh, that's Coral Springs Medical Center. It's 4 miles away. It'd take you about 7.5 minutes to get there." So you see where I'm going with this? Are there any sports things that my kids can sign up for? All the different things that people want to know when they're working or when they're going to an open house. And you're going to have all that. I know it seems silly because you might know it off the top of your head, but just do me the favor and make sure that you've done this homework because it's super important that you have it right there at your fingertips. And once you've written it down, you're more likely to remember it. Now I'm going to talk to you about your data acquisition. There are so many companies out there right now selling this information about what's going on in these neighborhoods, but you have the ability to gain this information yourself. Last week, I assigned to you that you should go in and find out how many families were facing list pendants, how many families were renting, how many absentee owners do you have in the geographic farm, how many homes were purchased in the last 36 months, how many people have lived there for between 3 and 5 years, how many people have owned homes between 10 and 15 years, and how many people have lived there 20 plus years. Let's think about those last two groups, that 200 homeowners and that 291 homeowners in our example farm area. Let's talk about the fact that they've raised their children. They know where all the sports parks are. They know where all the hospitals are because they brought them there. They brought their kids there for broken arms and feet and legs and such. But now their house has crickets in it. Their house has crickets because their children have gone to college. Their children have gotten married. Maybe they're not feeling it anymore. Yes, they've raised their children there, and yes, it holds a special place in their heart, but they need to move on. They're what we like to call the empty nesters. Well, let me tell you something. You having this information and knowing who those people are, get to have a totally different conversation with those people versus maybe somebody else who may have called you from that area. The other piece of equipment or the other piece of data that's so important is how many people have expired year to date. How many people have expired and are now called seasoned expireds? How many people are just plain old regular, I expired, 1 year, or regular expireds, right? And then how many expired last year or 2 years ago and they never relisted their property because their experience was so wretched? Well, don't you get to have a different conversation with them when you say, hey, the Fed's getting ready to raise interest rates and there's no inventory out there? That's a different conversation, right? How many people have tried to sell their house for sale by owner and they didn't succeed? Or how many are currently listed for sale by owner? So this brings me to page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 20 of your binder. I want you to have the name, address, phone number, email. I want you to try to connect with these people on Facebook. I want you to try to connect with these people on LinkedIn. I want you to try to connect with these people in any way, shape, or form that you can and get this information into your book. This is where all your digging is all of your detective skills are going to come into play. And I want you to have it readily available at your fingertips. I want you to have it for list pendants and foreclosure notices. I want you to have it for all of the expired listings year to date. What happens at midnight when a listing is getting ready to expire? It goes expired in the MLS, right? So what starts happening to those people at 8 a.m. the next morning? What happens at 8 a.m. the next morning is their phone is ringing off the hook with people who are working expireds, right? Hey, I saw your house just came off the market. You want to relist with me? Relist with me? Relist with me? Yes. You want to know that they expired, and I'm not saying don't try to call them, but I'm also saying that when you do call them, have all of your information at your fingertips. And when they become a seasoned expired because they want to take a break and no one else is paying any attention to them anymore, that's when the best time for you to pounce is. So of course, try to get them when they first expire. But when they become seasoned and they become really seasoned and they've already raised their hand once and said that they wanted to sell their house and they didn't, you know that they were thinking about it at one point. So now you get to have different conversations with them. When you're sending out your door hangers and somebody calls you, I want you to have this information so that you can turn to it in your binder and say, there's Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Jones expired back in 2019 and she didn't relist her home. So now she's thinking about listing again. Well, now I get to talk about what happened the last time she tried to sell. Now I get to tell her what's going on in the market. Now I get to tell her that her home will sell that much faster this time. I also want you to have all your for sale by owners in there. I want you to know who they are, know who's thinking about selling, because while they didn't raise their hand with a real estate professional to say that they were willing to sell their home or that they were thinking about moving, they did raise their hand by putting a sign in their yard. They did tell you that they're looking for that information. The other thing that you want to know is who recently purchased their home. Name, address, phone number, email address, Facebook, and LinkedIn of everybody that's in that area. I want you to do the research. This is your store. Remember I said that in week 1? This is your new storefront. So think about it. When you go into a Home Depot and you're walking through Home Depot and you say, "Hey, Mr. Home Depot employee, where can I find a screwdriver?" You know what he says to you? "Aisle 3, halfway down, right-hand side." Well, if he knows where the $9 screwdriver is or the $10 hammer is, don't you think that it would behoove you? Because he's getting paid $10 an hour, maybe 12 or 15 now, I don't know. But wouldn't it behoove you, somebody who has the ability to earn $3,600 based on our research? That's what we know. The average commission inside of that farm area is $3,600. So if the Home Depot employee has to know everything about every single hundreds of thousands of tools and trinkets and washers and nuts and bolts inside of that Home Depot, I would think that you, with your store of your 1,100 homes, your 200 homes, your 79 homes, your 85 homes, that you should know everything about those. I'm just saying. I want to know the probable renters. We want to know who's probably renting, and you're going to find that out over time. That may be one that's a little bit more difficult for you to come up with, but the absentee owners that you put into your book will definitely help you to find out who those probable renters are. Maybe they love the area. Maybe they want to purchase a house in there. Maybe they are looking to move somewhere else. Maybe their leases, you're going to know when their leases are up. You're going to know everything about the way that these people live their lives inside of this area. I also want you to tell me who the established residences are, who have lived there for a long period of time. I want you to also make notes inside of your book about who put new roofs on, who just got a new air conditioner. If you're running your farm area correctly, you're going to be there on a regular basis. So when you're driving through, I want you to look and see who's having air conditioning trouble because there's an air conditioning van in front of their house. And you're going to take notes on that. Who's putting a new roof on? Who just put a pool in? Who's having their deck repaved? Who's having their driveway redone? Not only are you going to have them in these books, but I'm going to, in later classes, tell you that you should write them a handwritten note with your business card in it that says, "I saw you got a new roof this week. Looks really great. Did you know that it can increase your sale value?" Yeah, you're going to seem like a stalker. But they're going to know that you are always in that area. So I also want you to know who the probable empty nesters are because they've been there for 15, 20 years, 25 years, 20 plus years. And they could be looking to, move out of the area because they don't need that much home anymore, or they want to move up north, or they want to go closer to their grandchildren. There's so many different ways that they could do it. So think about this. Think about the fact that Hawks Landing binder could be worth $34,680 for you each and every year. Well, actually, the first year. The next year, we're going to increase your market share to probably double that. So it could be worth $68,000. Think about how that works. Think about what happens when you already wake up on January 1st and you know where your first $35,000 is going to come from and you have a plan to make it happen. I think that's a pretty powerful piece of equipment. Then you go on with week 3, 4, 5, 6 of Farming Fridays and you add in another subdivision called, let's say, Wyndham Lakes for $21,000, and then you add another one in for Oriole Margate for $18,800. And now we're cooking with gas, guys. Now we're already starting to see how we can go $75,000 a year. First thing, January 1st, when you wake up in the morning. So talk about powerful piece of equipment. It's there. Your homework for this week is to take the worksbursts from last week, Verify your numbers, check your numbers, make sure that you are not choosing a farm area that any one person has more than 25% market share, because we want to make sure that they're under that 25% market share. I want you to take those papers, I want you to purchase a binder for yourself, and then go through your tax rolls, go through your MLS, separate out each of the different people that we spoke about: the absentee owners, the empty nesters, the expireds, list pendants, the for sale by owners, and create a section for each one of them inside of your new store. Put it in that binder and have it ready to go for next week. The other thing that you can do is go on Facebook and friend these people. Start to look for them, look for their names, and start to friend them on Facebook. And I'm going to teach you little tips and tricks of how you can get in front of them, even if you can't find them there. Also, I would suggest that you do the same on LinkedIn and start following them on Instagram. So I hope that that gives you enough to fill yourself with until next week. But next week, we're going to talk about creating a social network of families in your farm area based on their common home ownership, their shared interests, and their personal similarities. So next week, we're going to talk about Facebook. We're going to talk about LinkedIn, which is why I'm giving you a little preview and hint about what you should start with and what you should start looking at. Facebook, LinkedIn, Great Neighborhood Garage Sale, all the different things that you can do. Open house flyers, open house door hangers, all the different parts and pieces of somebody who really knows how to farm a geographic area. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.